What is up, guys? Pie Muffin here, and we are back with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about Dragon Quest XI. Now, I'm going to preface this video by saying two things. One, I'm not going to be talking about things in a particular order. This is just going to kind of be like what I liked about the game, maybe what I didn't like, although there's not really much I didn't like, so in that department, there may not be stuff there. And they'll just be me kind of, there will be spoilers. This is not going to be a spoiler-free video, so if you have not played the game, or if you're worried about being spoiled, this is not the video for you. So go ahead and click off. Because I don't know when I'm going to get into spoilers. Obviously, I'm going to start by just talking about my experience, but when I start talking about the plot and what I liked about the plot, it's just going to kind of jump in there. So yeah, there's not gonna be. I'm gonna be jumping around with stuff that different things that happened in the story, and we're just gonna kind of go from there. So this is the first Dragon Quest game I have ever played. Shout out to Danny at Geekdom 101. He was always someone who talked about Dragon Quest a lot, and I actually watched his stream a few months ago. I don't remember exactly when he did it, but he did like a Dragon Quest kind of like stream, and it looked interesting to me. And then I saw it. So Dragon Quest XI came out in Japan last year. It came out in 2017. But obviously it didn't get localized until about, like a month and a half ago. Actually, not even a month. Well, yeah, about a month and a half ago. And I saw it the day it came out, and I was like, you know what, should I get this? And I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna buy it. I've always been a fan of turn-based RPGs, so, like, I have played I played all of the Final Fantasy 13 ones. So 13, 1, 2, and 3. 13, 1, and 2 were they were turn-based, but they weren't like fully turn-based. And I have played Final Fantasy 1 and 7. I haven't played all the Final Fantasies. I eventually do want to go back and do that. But so I'm no stranger to turn-based RPGs. I also love Super Mario RPG, Paper Mario. Like, turn-based RPGs are my shit. Like, to not even put it lightly. So this was definitely right up my alley. And what's interesting about Dragon Quest XI, so it kind of reminds me, when it comes to stats, I'm used to a lot of, especially since I play a lot of gacha games, and, just playing RPGs in general, I'm used to the big thing that they seem to try to do with most RPGs to kind of sell fans in the RPG is, like, big stats, big damage meters, big HP bars, you like to see those big numbers. If you're playing a Tales game, obviously you cap out at 9,999 in a regular Tales game for HP. This game does not do that. This game really, and I don't want to say limits you, because it's not really limited, because you can make everything work fairly easily. From what I understand, the cap for HP in a Dragon Quest game, or at least this Dragon Quest game, is 999. So you are working with kind of lower stats than you would in kind of other RPGs. That's why it kind of reminded me, because Paper Mario, for example, you start off with, I think you start off with 10 HP and 5 flower points. And I know in the first Paper Mario, it like capped out at 50 HP. So, it's not on that level. Like, I'm in the post-game stuff right now. So, obviously, I haven't completed everything in the game, but we'll get into that. I'm in the post-game right now, and just to kind of give you a ballpark, my HP for most of my characters is in the 500-600s. So, you'll beat the game, and my characters are in, like, close to level 70. Although, I did beat the game kind of close to level 60. I don't even think I beat the game a week ago. But anyways, so it does. I didn't like it at first. It kind of. I looked at my character's health when I first started the game, and I was like, "Ooh, I hope there's like some big upgrades later down the line." But as I went through it, I realized that it really wasn't necessary. Like, we are spoiled by these like big numbers in different RPGs, but it's honestly all scaled. You don't have to have those big numbers. It's just something that fans like to see. Like, we like to see those big stats, when we upgrade our characters and stuff. But honestly, if you just scale it the same way, if you scale the damage that your enemies are going to be doing to you, it's all the same thing. So it really doesn't matter too much. So I really didn't mind it too much once I got into the game. So let's talk about the characters a bit. So your main character, nameless main character, because you name your character yourself. Your character does not. So I assume I haven't played all the Dragon Quest games. I have started Dragon Quest 1. I'm about an hour or two into Dragon Quest 1. But from what I understand, at least in this Dragon Quest, so you don't have a name, it's just kind of like, it's supposed to be you, but you're kind of like this Android 17 looking character, you've got this long hair. I've seen some people say the main character reminds them of Trunks when he had the long hair, but I see this guy as more of like an Android 17, but I do see where people come from with that. And you're living in this village, you're about to do your kind of rite of passage to become an adult with your childhood friend, and that's where everything starts. I mean, you obviously, before that, you get this whole cutscene of, when you're born, and you get this whole thing with the king wanting to basically kill you because, you're the dark spawn or whatever, which doesn't end up being the case, obviously. But this was like a nice, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but basically, they have kind of like a little Moses story where you go down the river and you get found by somebody. And the person that finds you literally just looks like Grandpa Gohan from Dragon Ball. And obviously, he raises you until, you're like 16, 17, whatever. And then you go through this rite of passage to become an adult. And then that's where things get crazy and you kind of go to the city, where you were chased out of as a baby, and to meet with the king, and that's where things just get crazy. So, let's just talk about the cast. I don't want to go through an entire recap of the whole story, because if you're interested, you'll play the game yourself, and those who have already played the game, you don't need me to recap it for you. So, we'll talk about the party members. So let's talk about Eric now. Eric is a thief who you meet in the dungeon when you get locked away in the castle. He kind of looks like if Gohan ever achieved Super Saiyan Blue, which we know is never going to happen. He has a very interesting, a lot of characters in this game have interesting accents, what they did for the English dub for it. But yeah, he was told that, if he was in this place at this specific time, that he would meet the Luminary by someone called the Seer. And that's basically what happened. You are put in that dungeon, you meet Eric, you tell him you're the Luminary, and he's like, whoa, really? And this is literally like your number one bro in this game. Like, literally, as you go through the game, like, Eric and the main character are, like, the best of bros. I really do like Eric because his character development, in my opinion, is the best of all the characters in this game. And that's what I love about this game. Like, the downside to some games, and I don't mean to throw, flag at some Tales games, but there are some Tales games that don't flesh out their entire main cast and don't give them all the development that they really deserve. This game gives fair development to everybody. There is not a single person in your main party that gets left out. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to have the same development at the same time, because there will be different scenes, different parts of the story where everyone will progress. So, like Eric, for example, it's only after the world basically ends by Morrigan, and you eventually go through this whole process of he doesn't have his memories, and then he's slowly starting to get these, like, headaches, which is obviously his memories trying to come back. And then once you actually uncover his memories, obviously, you have the Yggdrasil plants that can kind of, when the Luminary touches them, can show events of the past and such. You actually get to see his full backstory, and you learn that Eric gave his sister a pendant, basically, that allowed her to turn everything she touches into gold, but it got out of control, and then she tried to take it off. She herself got turned to gold. There was nothing Eric could do. He fled from the Vikings, who were basically using them as slaves. And that was pretty much it. He put his past behind him, he tried to forget it, and move forward with his life. Unfortunately, moving forward with his life came back to bite him. But, you end up making everything work out. That's why Eric's story is my favorite, because it seems like there is the most emotion when it comes to his story. I know for me, when I was playing through the game and I was at that scene and I already knew, like, they have this whole thing about there's someone who's turning everything in this town to gold. Immediately, once I saw that flashback, I was like, "Oh crap! They're gonna hit Eric in the fields, and his sister's gonna be the big bad who's turning everything into gold." And that was the case. Morrigan actually freed her from her gold prison, and then she had all the power she wanted. She was, obviously kind of, I don't want to say mind controlled, because I think she was aware of what she was doing. But it was like the power that Morrigan gave her kind of skewed with her mind a bit. But obviously, in the end, you're able to free her. Eric does the self-sacrificial thing. Luckily, he doesn't stay dead. He does the self-sacrificial thing. He gets turned to gold. But then the whole thing was, once she realized she didn't need that greed anymore, that's what kind of ripped away all the curse, basically, of turning everything to gold. That's basically what it was. It was just a curse. And once she accepted that her greed was taking over her and she wanted to move beyond it, everything was freed from that curse. Who should I talk about next? Let's talk about Veronica. Because obviously, those are you and Eric are the only two party members, I would say, for the first, what was it for me? I think it was the first 10 hours of the game. Before you get the next two party members. I'll actually talk about them together. Veronica and Serena, they are sisters. So basically what happens, you meet Veronica in this it kind of reminded me, it's called Hoto. That was the name of the town. It gave me a very kind of Chinese vibe to it. Just how the buildings were all kind of put together and everything. But she's a little girl. Now, you're wondering why a little girl like this is so smart about when it comes to things about magic and stuff like that. And then you find out that she actually had her mana drained by this creature who was actually holding her sister captive, Serena. So Veronica goes with you. You go to this monster's lair. And then you see Serena there. She's just laying on the floor outside of the main door where you fight the boss. And that's when your actual first healer joins the party. Because obviously before then, it's okay because your main character is so very, I guess unique is a good word for it when it comes to your abilities. Because you can, your main character can get healing spells, you can get attack spells, you can get buff spells, and then you can get different attacks for swords, great swords, daggers, all that kind of stuff. So your main character, it really gives you the freedom to kind of play however you want to play when it comes to your main character and how you're setting up your party. But yeah, so that'll be your first party of 4, and yes, this game you do... At first I was confused, because once I got my 5th party member, he wasn't actually part of our party yet, but he joined us, so I was confused because we had 5 party members on the field at once. So I was like, oh crap, so these 8 or 9 party members we're going to get, are we going to be able to use them all at the same time? So I was super excited about that, but no, it's just 4 at a time, which makes sense. It really does make sense because there's a lot of... One, you don't need to have 8 turns in a row. The game wouldn't be a challenge then. And 2, your enemies would be able to hit all your 8 party members with group attacks. But anyways, back to... like I said, this is going to be all kind of over the place, just talking about the game. We're just chilling. Okay, so Veronica... Veronica was kind of the whole dynamic they have with Veronica and Eric really reminded me of the dynamic between Mickleo and Edna in Tales of Zestiria. You've kind of got these two people who get on each other's nerves, and they're too proud to admit that they appreciate each other type stuff. Eric's kind of what's the word for it? He's not an airhead, but he's kind of attack first, think later type guy. At least in certain parts when it comes to Veronica. So Veronica will always kind of give him crap about that. And it's a funny dynamic, but obviously they're friends. But yeah, so Veronica and Serena are basically, they are... I don't want to say sages. They're not really sages. Basically, their job from the village that they come from is to guide the Luminary to basically his ascendance. And basically what that means is, long story short, we're supposed to get the Sword of Light, slay the evil Morrigan, save the world. So it's their job to make sure that we do that. And then you find out that they are actually the descendants from a previous person whose job that was, named Serena. Which is funny because if you just think about it, Serenica is literally just Serena and Veronica's names just put into one person. But yeah, so they're really cool characters. Okay, so now this is going to be heavy spoilers for both these characters. So when the end of the world happens, what I really like about the end of the world stuff is it kind of resets the game in a way. So like the whole second half of the game is like resetting all over, because when the world ends and you get knocked back to the ground, it's just you again. Like, everyone got scattered to different parts of the world that you've already been to, but you can't go to immediately again. So you have to spend time finding all your party members again. And it doesn't do it in the same order that you first met them, which is also really cool. And there's actually some freedom to how you find certain party members, because there was a point where I had to fight a boss after the world had ended. But I died against that boss, so I went exploring to kind of get some more experience and level up more. And I found another party member as I was doing that. And then when I went back to that fight, it made that fight easier. So it does give you more free. It's not as linear as some JRPGs are. I got way off topic there. So yeah, back to Veronica. So when the world ends, you actually find out through memories that she actually died. Like, they actually kill off, they kill off a party member. I kind of made a slip of the tongue right there, but I'm sure if you guys have played it, you know what I'm talking about. So she dies, basically protecting everybody. And then when you find that out, you get a very Naruto-esque scene for Serena where she cuts off her hair, just kind of declaring that she's not going to be, like, weak anymore, and that she's going to, carry her own weight. And you get this whole scene where the flame from Veronica's staff basically goes inside of Serena, and she basically takes on Serena's role. Or, no. She takes on Veronica's role. Serena does. And basically what that does for the second half of the game is Serena gets all of Veronica's spells. So she literally becomes a red mage. So to speak. So that was really cool. I really like that. We'll get into what I kind of let slip over there a little later into the video. Let's talk about Silvano, your fifth party member. Silvano is a very fun character. At first, I was like, I swear I had this feeling that he was going to betray us. Like, the second we met him, I was like, oh, this guy's going to betray us. But for once, I was actually wrong. I'm usually pretty good about, spotting who the traitor in the game is. Which, surprisingly, none of your party members are that in this game. I was actually really shocked about that. Because most JRPGs like to do that thing. It's like, you've got these 6-7 party members, and one of them betrays you. I know the Tales game is notorious for doing that. But yeah, they don't do that. Silvano is a very colorful character in more ways than one. Basically, you find out his father, Don Rodrigo, it was very pivotal in training knights for the kingdom. And you find out that he used to be a knight, Silvano, but he left it because it just wasn't his thing. He went to a circus one day, and he just realized that, this is what I want to do. Just make people smile. Like, he didn't want to be a knight. He wanted to do that. And I do like the dynamic that he has with his father late in the game, because it's just such a cool thing. Like, obviously, Silvano left assuming that his father didn't approve of what he was doing. But then when you come back to in the second half of the game, and you actually need Don Rodrigo's help, he actually is like, I thought you were going to make the world smile. Why did you come back if you didn't complete your job? Which is really cool, because it's not just the typical case of, oh, this father doesn't, believe in what his son's doing. He believes in his son. He just wants his son to do what he set out to do. So that was a really cool thing. Silvano is the comic relief character for the party. I mean, all the characters kind of have their comic relief moments, but him more so. he's just a really fun character. You know, he always brings a lot of kind of pep to the group whenever there's kind of like dark stuff going on. And the way his character plays, like in combat wise, you can have him use a whip. You can have him use a one-handed sword. I believe he can use daggers as well. Yeah. He can use daggers. So he's a pretty fun character. He's really, I love his heals aren't the same as other characters' heals. He has like an overtime heal. So like, 20 HP every turn. So you don't have to cast it over and over and over. But yeah, so he was one of the characters I wasn't so sure about in the beginning. I was just kind of like, this character's probably like, meh, whatever. But he really grew on me as time went on. Okay, so for the next two party members, you've got Jade and Rab. So these characters are pretty fun as well. Jade is obviously the eye candy for the game, and rightfully so. You find out that in the scene of the beginning of the game, the girl that was basically carrying the main character in a basket, that's actually Jade, but she's grown up. She is actually the daughter of the king that basically wanted you dead. So that's always an interesting thing, and she's kind of just on the run with Rab. Rab is actually your blood-related grandfather, which is pretty fun to find out. You're actually in a coliseum when you actually find all this stuff out and you meet them. You meet them a couple times before this stuff actually goes down, but it's pretty fun in the coliseum that you actually get to fight them and stuff. Although Eric does get his ass kicked a little bit, which is kind of funny. Jade uses spears and fisticuffs, and I believe that's all she uses. I think she only has 2 weapon types. And then Rab is your second party healer. He gets some of the higher end heals faster than Serena does. 'Cause he has, he gets multi-heal first. I know he gets multi-heal before Serena does, which is really nice because, for a lot of the game, you're like, all right, I got to decide which party member I need to heal this turn because everyone's going to get hit anyway, so who's going to live the longest? But once you get multi-heal, that becomes a lot easier because you can just spam heal everybody, although it does take quite a bit of mana. It's actually really cool to see the character develop. I mean, Jade's is kind of funny in a way. Her character development is just basically her goal is to obviously protect us, the Luminary, as well, because that was her job when she was younger as well, and she failed, so she feels obligated to do it now. And then just the whole character development between her and Hendrik early on. Hendrik obviously being the knight who's constantly chasing after you. It's kind of funny because I think some of that actually rubbed off on Hendrik. He just saw everything that she was trying to do, and eventually that helped him out later on. The funny stuff about Jade kind of happens post End of the World, so second half of the game, because when you go back to the Coliseum, she's dressed up in this bunny suit, obviously very like Playboy bunny-ish. And she's brainwashed, and you actually have to fight her and kind of knock her out of it. But the funny part about this is, even after you've killed the guy who was possessing her, she still retains that ability, so she's still able to transform into that, like, dark state to get that power boost. And it's actually really brutal how she kills the guy. We don't actually kill her. Like, we beat him in the fight, obviously, gameplay-wise, but then afterwards, when she comes to, it's actually really funny to see, like, she just brutally murders him. Like, obviously they don't show it on screen. It's kind of like a panned away shot of the characters kind of covering their face, but then you just hear all the like bones cracking, the blood spewing everywhere, like all that stuff. So it's actually pretty funny. Rab is pretty cool because you get this whole character arc with basically your character's father and Rab's son being like forced to live this eternal damnation as like this dark night in this dungeon, where you actually where you were born. Dundrasil is the name of the, I don't know if I call it, I mean, it's not a city anymore, but that's basically what it was. Because your father was the king there, and you find out later through flashbacks and stuff like that. And now for the final party member, I mentioned him before, Hendrik. So, basically, he doesn't join you until after the world falls. So basically what it leads up to is, you're up at the world tree, you're up at Yggdrasil, and you're about to claim the Sword of Light. You get blasted in the back. And this whole thing happens. Morrigan shows up. He converts the Sword of Light into darkness, and the world basically ends. Everyone gets scattered. You get scattered near your hometown of Cobblestone, which is now a defense fort for anyone who's trying to flee from the forces of darkness. And Hendrik is the hero that kind of helms this fort. Excuse me. So it's kind of a cool little thing where, Hendrik has hated you for so long because he thought you were the dark spawn. He thought you were the spawn of evil. So even though he knows he was in the wrong, he still is very, I guess, wary of you in the beginning. But as those first few kind of scenes happen where you fight alongside him, he does eventually swear, he pledges himself to protect the Luminary, which is pretty cool. I like the time that your character and Hendrik basically spend together heading, back to the castle, seeing Jasper there. Jasper is the one who actually blasts you in the back from getting the Sword of Light. So it's really cool to have Hendrik part of the party. Hendrik is the designated tank. You can use him with the sword and shield. You can use him with just shields. Or you can use him with a greatsword. I usually had him hold a greatsword because his abilities are actually pretty good with that, especially with some of the AoE stuff. It was just very weird. I thought there was going to, one thing I wish they had done, this isn't really a bad thing, but I think it would have been funny if, more people were, more of your party members, as you started to gather them, were surprised to see Hendrik with you, because no one really had a reaction as to why Hendrik was with you. They were just like, oh, okay, well, this is happening. But yeah, Hendrik was a really fun character. It's really cool to kind of see his growth. He does become a little bit more laid back as time goes on. He's still pretty rigid, though, for the most part. And then his whole character development with his past, basically, Jasper, his fellow knight, basically always saw Hendrik going ahead, always leave him in the dust, not really paying much attention to him. And basically, the fact that he was always behind is what made him turn to Morrigan. Which, I don't know, Jasper's backstory is kind of meh, just because it's oh, you didn't have the power, so you went seeking for dark power type thing instead of just getting it through hard work. So that was that, but I do like that Hendrik was always seeing Jasper as his inspiration to get to where he was. So that was a lot of talking about the characters. What I do like is the exploration aspect of this game. I love how many treasure chests and just areas there are to explore, to kind of find new things. There are a ton of side quests. I will not be completing all of them anytime soon because there are just so many, and it's so much fun to just kind of go around and explore and stuff. Although you do have to be careful even in post game, because you may wander into an area that you're not ready for, even at the higher levels, because the post game enemies are extremely tough. But that just makes it more rewarding when you actually beat it. I did want to talk a little bit about post-game. So, this is really cool because, I'll mention Danny again because he mentioned this. It's kind of like playing the game again after you've beaten it. And what I mean by that is, so basically you go to this tower and you talk to... So throughout the entire game, I'm kind of jumping around again with my words. Throughout the entire game, you see these little creatures. I don't really know how to describe them, but they're just little creatures that always have their mouth and eyes wide open. You just see them walking around, but only the Luminary is able to see them. So you go to this tower where there's a taller one, and she basically talks. I'm assuming it's a she. She had a female voice, so I'm just gonna say she or it. She basically said that they're basically looking for a way to revive Veronica, because up until when you beat Morrigan, even after you beat Morrigan, Veronica's still dead. This isn't like Dragon Ball where, oh, there was some magical wish we could make after defeating Morrigan. Although, I guess this kind of counts in post-game. So basically, what you do is you're able to turn back time to before Veronica died, before the world tree fell, basically. But here's the downside to that is you basically have to live life from there forward. So while that kind of sucks, it was also kind of fun for me because basically what happens is, like, you go back to before Morrigan was destroying the world. And then the entire second half of the game, you just play it again, but in post-game. And it's a completely different set of events of how everything unfolded. Which is, it's just crazy. And obviously there's still a lot of stuff I need to do in that post-game, but so far from what I've done, it's actually really, really cool. I do like all the twists and turns everything had. Obviously you do defeat Morrigan again, but then there is a bigger evil that you have to deal with there, and I'm currently dealing with that. And that ties into the little creatures I told you about that were walking around. And there's a lot of kind of like, oh crap, well, because this character didn't destroy this during the time that, you know, because we reset time, this character isn't alive to destroy this, so this creature gets to be the big bad. So it's really cool stuff like that. However, I think I've rambled on long enough. I didn't really, I guess I didn't really say I mean, I did say what I liked. But as for, you know, I honestly feel like if you are someone who likes Final Fantasy, if you like, you know, just JRPGs in general, definitely pick up this game. You don't need to play the other Dragon Quest to enjoy this game. I will, however, say if you have played the other Dragon Quest, you will enjoy this game even more because there are a lot of musical scores and just references that tie back to older games. Obviously, I won't know them because I haven't played them, but I have had people tell me like, oh, this, you know, this does this, and this is from this game type stuff. Mostly Danny, by the way. So it is really cool if you have played the other titles, but I do not think it's necessary that you play the other ones first. Like, if you're someone who wants to get into the series, but you're into more modern gaming, definitely start with this one. And then if you want to go back and play the other ones like I'm doing, you can do it that way too. Or, before playing this game, you could just start from 1 and go all the way up. But I am really excited to see what the future holds for Dragon Quest, because, I mean, this was an amazing game, and I can only assume that, you know, sometime down the line we will get, like, a Dragon Quest 12 or something, or 13, you know, whatever the order is going to be, but I, for one, am very happy with the $60 I spent on this game. I have played now probably 140 hours, and like I said, I've still got a crap ton of side quests to do, and it was just a bundle of fun. So definitely pick up this game if you can. Thank you all for watching, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe for more if you're new to the channel. I will see you all next time. Have a wonderful day, everyone.